Hello and welcome everyone, not to Witch Bitch,
No,
but to
no
She's
longer.
of Love, because we've just changed the name a couple days ago, and it's a pretty big change, I would say, but a very welcome one. Um, so I think we can talk more about it because we have an Ancient Mysteries episode coming up, and I feel like it would be better to go a bit deeper into that
Yeah.
in the Ancient Mysteries episode. But just to give a bit of an overview, we're of love and we have a lot of female energy going on. So, yeah, I feel so honored, and I think it's totally meant to be that Nancy is on the show today, in her white,
Yeah. Her
crystalline,
angelic
angelic,
screen.
yes. So, Nancy, as you know, we always start off these episodes with
hmm
what was your awakening story, and then from there we can go anywhere you'd like in the conversation. But we would love to know how you woke up. Was it something that happened from a young age and you just kind of knew the whole time, or was it one big moment? Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited.
We're, we're excited to have you
And
here.
I'm honored, of course. Yeah, look, my awakening journey started around 9/11. So, like most people, I woke up to the news of, a terrorist act, and I actually thought, okay, something big's going on in the world. But there was something that my gut was saying that this just doesn't seem right. At that time, I was a beauty therapist, and I had a lot of American clients, and they were so distraught with what was happening. So I just wanted to research it. I found that it was really interesting, and as I started uncovering, oh boy, I went down the biggest rabbit hole and uncovered so many things. I mean, I've spent countless hours on the internet, and this is before the internet was censored because it was fresh. So I saw so many things that I probably shouldn't have seen, and discovered that we have been lied to for so long that it's actually quite disturbing. And what's disturbing about it for me is that there are so many people, like 98% of us are sheep, you know, and really only 2% are awake. And that to me was like huge, it's a huge number. Why aren't people seeing this? So, I started investigating, of course. I'm a really inquisitive person. If you get me going, I love the truth. That's something that's one of my biggest values, honesty and truth and integrity. So when I started discovering all this stuff, other than being a little bit angry, and I could say other words, I was wanting to know the story, the whole thing. I wanted to go full in, going back to the Illuminati, going back to, pre-war days. I've like listened to so many podcasts, and then of course COVID came, and I thought that was just the biggest joke. As soon as it came in, I knew that there was something so fishy about this. It just stunk. And so the biggest journey for me has been the last 3 years, where I've been isolated from people, where ostracized from family, events especially. We were disinvited to a Christmas event because we weren't vaccinated. And then just being out and really being authentic in that time was very empowering for me. I mean, I didn't wear a mask. I actually refused to. I walked into places I probably wasn't allowed to walk into, and I was just saying to myself, I just got to be myself, and that's who I am. And I haven't looked back since. I've had lots of people look at me weirdly when I talk about it, and I really don't care, to be quite honest. The more that people know about the evil, and I call this the war of between good and evil. Light and dark. We can talk about religion, but that's a whole different ball game. I'm talking about just basically the light and dark, and that's all I'm interested in, is being, being the light worker. I'm in a field now where I get to meet so many people, and this is what I do for a living to help them. You know, I'm a coach, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I see so many people that have so many issues because of everything that's been going on, and it gives me an opportunity to help them. So somewhere along the line, like the two of you in your community, we all signed up for this little contract here on earth to be light workers. So for me, that's all I want to do, is just bring light into such a dark part of the world. So yeah, that's my story.
Wow, 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11.
Didn't do it for me. I was completely asleep.
I
I was one of the sheep, 100%.
I
And I was in the airline
Yes,
industry.
yes,
I
that's
was in the
right.
airline industry. So I think that was part of the reason why I was so indoctrinated into believing the cover story.
yeah.
Hmm.
And Juliet would come, like,
I was so into conspiracies, it's not even
yes,
funny. Like
it
I
it
it
interested her so deeply
I
that I was like, why is she into this stuff? Like, this
Go,
weird
Juliet.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was watching, see, it's funny because you have this beautiful insight where you could like go to the internet right as it was kind of a big thing, and the internet wasn't censored like you were saying,
Yeah.
and I feel like there's so much power in that because you have a real, you know, not physical, but like you have evidence that's coming through. Whereas when
That
I
you could
was that you
trust.
could trust.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, because I wasn't born at that time, I like obviously heard about it because it's one of the biggest things that's ever happened in our day and age.
Yeah.
But as I was learning about it, you would hear like jokes about it being a conspiracy, and I was like, why is it like a joke about being a conspiracy? What's there? And when I looked online, it was a very different story. It was like really out there, crazy.
Yeah.
I would say people just trying to rile up other people, sort
Yeah.
of stuff on the internet, and there was
Yeah, and it
censorship.
was called a conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
Yes.
That was the difference, because back then when it was happening, people were actually interested about really what happened, because
yeah,
it had only just happened. There was no conspiracy theories.
no,
That didn't exist
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
about this happening. And so it was, if you were interested in it, you weren't shamed. People weren't thinking, why are you talking about this? Why are you, like, if you had a different idea to the official narrative, people would probably go, really? Like, but then it took, time for it to really sink in that it was a conspiracy theory and that you were crazy
but I,
and that
yeah,
sort of thing.
I think now, and let me know if you agree, but I think it's come full circle because when I talk with my friends, not even just about this specific thing, but about a lot of things in our society,
The mysteries.
including
Yes.
the virus, including so much of those big conspiracy theories. Whenever I talk about it with my friends, it's like widely accepted that there's more to the
Yeah,
story,
that we
and
don't know
and
everything.
there's
Hmm.
sus stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with that. I think in the last year, people have woken up. There's quite a few that were asleep that have woken,
Yep. Hello.
which is fantastic. And I think people are questioning things. Um, those that are vaccinated are getting twice as sick. Three
Yeah.
times as sick as the standard person. I can tell you, I've never had COVID, and even if I did have it, it's a flu, and I wouldn't even blink twice. I wouldn't even call it COVID. You know what I mean? So I think society has just put fear. And when we were looking back then with 9/11, we were a little bit ostracized, I must admit, because I didn't ask the standard questions. I
Yeah.
was analyzing stuff like, so the building went down like it was detonated. For me, that
Yeah.
was the first thing I saw. And I thought, that's a bit weird. That's not how a building goes down if a plane crashes into it. So then I started asking questions, and people were sort of looking at me a little bit queer. They weren't looking at me saying, oh, yeah, why is that? Because there was so much fear They put the fear of everything in society, in human beings, to think, well, if they're so fearful, they won't ask questions. But for me, it was the opposite. You know, I had one child at that time, a young girl. Oh no, I had another child at that time. Yeah, there's two. They were both young and they were asking me a lot of questions. So from that day, I can tell you, I'd never watched the news. I switched the TV off and said to my husband, not watching the news anymore. You know, the
Yeah.
kids are getting afraid,
Yeah,
and
right.
I didn't want the fear put into them,
Yeah.
because indoctrination. So we don't watch the news. We haven't watched the news since 9/11. There are
Yep.
sometimes people will come to me and say, oh, did you hear about the earthquake? Did you hear about this? And I'll say, no.
Yeah.
And they'll
Yeah.
think like, where have you been living, on Mars or something?
Yes. Yeah,
For me,
people get really like offended that you don't know the current affairs
Yeah,
of what,
things going on.
because we don't watch the news either. We switched it off probably about, I reckon, 5 years ago.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, we stopped watching the news before
Yeah,
before
before.
COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we stopped really watching television.
yeah,
And it was just a thing that we
Yeah, I would say about
I
5 years ago.
started, yeah, I started it in the house. I was like, oh, I don't think we need to have the TV on all the time. So
Actually, it was my whole childhood. You would say that.
yeah.
Whenever Mum caught me watching the news, it should be like, "Turn it off, Juliet."
Yeah, it just didn't resonate with me. It was not really a decision because of something. It was just like a gut feeling,
yeah,
and we just stopped watching it. And you know what? Stopping that made me realize how current affairs obsessed Australia is.
yes,
Like, I don't know what it is about us in particular, but our country is obsessed with it.
Yeah,
It's on 24 hours a day,
yeah.
almost on TV.
I've got a
yeah,
story to add to that. Actually, I'm not sure if you were, Nancy. Are you in New South Wales?
yes, I
Yeah,
am.
yeah. So, do you guys remember a few years back when there was the Lint Cafe
Yes.
Yes,
siege?
Yes.
yes,
So there was, for all the people that haven't heard about it, there was a siege in Sydney CBD, and it was like a really big deal because a lot of terrorist attacks were going on around the world at that time, and
Yeah.
Australia had never faced anything like this as a terror act, and it technically wasn't a terrorist; it was an act of terror
yes,
technically. But I remember being in school and it was announced on the news that this thing was going on, and the teachers actually came and talked about it to our class. And there was even a time I remember I had a friend, so the teacher's daughter was one of my friends, and
This was in primary
this
school.
was in primary school. I was like probably 10 years old at this time. And we're chasing the mum around the school. So while she's chasing other people to hear about it. And this is how this carries through.
Yeah, to
you know,
kids.
To kids.
The
yeah,
drama of it is
Yeah.
yes,
it's contagious, you know, like it's like, oh, there's drama. I remember in our family, Spence, my husband, Spence, he was a bit of a drama addict, and I was too. I was too, but I saw it in myself first, and then I started to try and dial down the drama and the addiction of the drama, like sever it in my life. And so when I was doing that, I was seeing behaviors in him like rubbernecking when there's an accident, you know, and kind of like turning the car around and going back to see if they needed help. But it wasn't, it was more than just him wanting to help. It was him wanting to see what was going on.
yep,
And I remember him taking Juliet in the car specifically to an accident that happened near our house. And I remember getting really upset about it and saying, don't take our child. You know, if you're going to go, I can't stop you from doing that, but please don't take Juliet with you, because I don't want her to be addicted to the drama as well. I don't want those behaviors to be controlling her. And we had a massive discussion about it. And over the years, he's drawn more and more away from drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I saw it in myself, that I was able to see it going on around me, because we don't see how we're addicted to the gossip and the drama and the
Yeah.
what's going on over there. And I need to know what's happening in my neighborhood, and I need to know what's happening in the world. And it's like this hero complex
Yeah.
that we think if we watch the news, we're doing something good for the world because we're informed.
Yeah.
And it's a real, like in Australia, I see it, it's very ingrained.
I think you're absolutely right. Drama is an addiction,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate that our society places such heaviness there. Such it needs to be there. It's actually like when you look at the news, it's very dramatic, and
Yes.
news flash and all that. But if you actually sit down, I mean, when I used to watch the news, it used to be on the background mainly in the morning, when we're getting ready for work and school. And I never ever heard any good news.
Yes.
You start to listen to it for after a while. In the beginning, it's like normal. And then when I started to pay attention to what was going on in the world, 9/11, it was on all the time. And it was just, for me, it created fear. Now, mainstream media like to create fear. I mean,
Yes.
why wouldn't they? You can control the whole world with fear. It's exactly what Hitler did, and those before him did the same sort of thing. So can you imagine? You have the whole world watching. You have this major platform. So we know who controls mainstream media. We know the elite control that. So then why wouldn't they give them the biggest show and put all this fear to actually get people to conform?
Yeah.
And it makes so
And
much
it
sense.
worked.
And it worked. I mean, COVID was the biggest test of it. That people conforming like you would not believe. People dobbing in on their own
I
neighbours was
know.
massive for me.
I know. I had someone, because I was posting controversial content on my Facebook page, right? I was asking questions that people were like, why? Like, it was against the grain.
Yes.
And it were because these were questions that I legitimately had, right? And things like, I was seeing how putting people putting people on respirators, the breathing machines and stuff,
Yeah.
was actually doing like damage to
Yeah.
people and things like that. And
Yeah.
now I saw an article come out not long ago, like a few days ago, talking about how putting people on the breathing machines actually killed them. And we know that now, like that's coming out now. And at the time, I was saying, is this a possibility? Because the hospitals were actually being paid. They were getting money to put people on
Yeah, and
respirators.
to diagnose people with COVID.
Yeah, so every time they put somebody on a respirator, I think they got $13,000. This was happening in America. I don't know about here. And when I asked that question on Facebook, um, a guy who I used to work with, who was a friend when I was at work with him, he got so angry with me, and he messaged me privately, and he said, if you don't stop doing this and asking these questions and putting this false information out into Facebook land, I'm going to report you to the police. And I said to him, why would you do that? Just because I'm curious as to these things that I'm seeing and I'm posting about them. And he said, because you're actually doing harm to people by spreading disinformation. You're doing harm. And I'm going to call the cops on you, and I will report you.
That's fear. That's him so scared of the truth. And you know what? People would rather believe a lie
Yeah.
than believe the truth because it ruins their whole comfort zone. Their
Yes, the
whole
comfort
world
zone. Yes,
is
the comfort
just
zone.
uplifted. And I've known this all my life, and now you're telling me this. Now, you can imagine when the stuff does come out, and it will. It can't be contained. It's like a champagne bottle waiting to burst.
Yeah.
They've got to do it so slowly. the information has to come out because people will actually lose the plot. You'll
Yeah.
have people either committing suicide, either in some massive depression. You'll have people that will cause anarchy. You imagine that you've been lied to for 3 years. This
Well, longer
COVID
than that.
narrative. Okay, let's just focus on that, let alone the stuff
Yeah.
that happened way before. The COVID narrative. You're going to get people that are saying, I vaccinated my children, you
Yeah.
know, and they're going to be feeling like, oh my God, I've committed, the biggest, probably the worst thing I could ever think of by, doing that to my child. So you're going to have so much anarchy in the world
Mm.
because no one likes their belief system, and because people will die for their beliefs. That's why we have war.
Yeah.
So their belief system is going to be uprooted, and everything they've known all their life, they're going to freak out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is why when I talk to people, I say just have a mind that's open to everything. You know,
Yes.
just
That's
everything.
all it
Yeah,
is.
just question everything.
Exactly. That's all it is just open your brain to the possibility.
Yeah. What
You know,
if?
just you don't have to close the wall down and say no, 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 no.
And
You know,
isn't that a spiritual truth,
yes,
really?
that's
And
what led us to the divine.
yeah, like
That's what led, like all of this stuff that we're talking about today, led us to that spiritual path that we're on now,
yeah,
and that we have taken, like, 'cause to take back your power, you must take responsibility.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not accepting responsibility for your life, then you're saying, I'm not in control. Other people are making me do this. And so if other people are making me do this, I'm an instrument. I'm not actually myself.
yeah,
I'm just being used all the time, and I'm not making decisions, and I'm
Yeah.
not an active participant in my life.
Yeah.
And so that truth led us to ourselves, led us down the path of spirituality, and taking responsibility, and making decisions, like the drama stuff, like making the decision not to be controlled by drama, and not to be consumed by it, and to actually act as a responsible human and feel for the people that are in the situation, because we've been in situations that have been dramatic as well. To have bystanders watching and filming, or talking about it or whatever, is actually trauma. That's traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
because you've got one level of the drama happening, and then you've got the other level of people talking about it and using it as fodder.
Yeah.
yeah,
And so to take responsibility and say, no, that's none of my business. I'm not going to buy into that drama for that person. Some people would say, you're being heartless because you're not interested. No, I'm actually being compassionate to that person and to myself,
Yeah.
and that is part of loving myself, is not partaking in that with that person.
100%. You're honoring yourself. And I
Yes.
think I have to be honest with you. Our eyes, we're born without the knowledge of where we've come from. So when we come to this earth and to learn our lessons, because earth is all about learning harsh lessons, it's the hardest school ever. We aren't sure of why we're here. What is our purpose? And I ask this for my kids. I ask it for everyone that I come in contact is, what is your purpose? What is your gift to the world? And once you know what your gift is or what your purpose is, you have it's such a blessing. Like, I think about COVID, and I think about everything that I know, and I think that I'm awake, and I'm really, really blessed. I actually feel like it's an honor to be awake, because I've decided long, long before I came here that I was going to be a light worker. I was going to be one of the ones that's going to help, which is a beautiful thing. So letting go, before you get there, you've got to let go of your who you were, your belief system. You've actually got, it's like a heavy cloak. You've got to take it off and be authentic, you know, trust your intuition. That is the only thing I could say that got me to 9/11. It was my intuition that gave me that big kick in the gut and said, wake up, there's something a little bit more sinister going on here. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, it's also about speaking your truth, you know, using your voice to create change, positive change. And of course, taking the lead your own life and be that person that can lead their own life so they can lead others, you know. And if you're a positive influence, people want to come on board, you know,
Yes.
they want to hear what you have to say. So there's so many good things about, you know, being awake, so to speak. There's so much goodness that you can do, and even though there's so much evil going on in the world, I guess it just gives you an opportunity to reflect and say, well, what can I do? You know, what is this one thing that I can do? And that is what I just said, walk by being authentic and being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask is about your work and your journey of being a light bringer and your journey in the light. Do you want to maybe, in your own words, say what you do and how you embody the light?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Juliet. That's a good question. So I am I'm a mixture of things, but mainly I just help people to reach their potential, their highest potential. That's what I would say that I help do. I just facilitate. I'm a teacher of love. I'm a Louise Hay workshop leader and teacher. So I get an opportunity, which is one of my favorite things to do, is to help people in you can call them women's circles, we call them mixed circles, where we sit for 2 days and really get to the nitty gritty of pain that we've had. We do forgiveness. We learn how to love ourselves. We become so much more lighter. And once we release all of that, you know, once we release the hatred or the feeling of anger and frustration, and we go to forgiveness, we start to heal. And it's always been a thing for me. Some people say to me, oh, but if I heal, what difference does it make? Oh, it makes a hell of a lot of difference.
Yeah.
You heal yourself. You go out there, you're one less person in the world that is, you know, angry and you know, mean and horrible. You know, unhealed people hurt others.
Yes.
You know, so there's less pedophiles, there's less rapists, there's less murderers, there's less people that, you know, are just really evil. So if you heal yourself and you go out in the world, you touch another human being and you help them heal. So of course it's going to have a ripple effect, and then eventually you heal the world. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is the Heal Your Life for me, other than being a life coach and a clinical hypnotherapist. Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And I don't know if I'm sure that your listeners know about Louise Hay.
Yeah. I've heard of Louise Hay. Yes.
Yeah, massive icon in the self-help development industry. She created this workshop, and the Love Yourself, Heal Your Life, well, it's based on her book, You Can Heal Your Life. The workshop is phenomenal. It changes lives. People walk out of here so different. They've, you know, rung me or texted me days later saying, there's a shift. I'm a different person. I'm happier. I've mended a relationship with someone that I, you know, haven't had a relationship for 10 years. And they feel good in their heart. They don't have to be best friends, but they feel good in their heart. And then they go on in their lives, and then they create that positive ripple effect. So for me, I guess that has been the highlight so far for me of my career to date. I mean, I've done many other things, but what led me to self-development was me being in the pitfalls of my misery. And I was a very miserable person. I couldn't get back into the workforce. I was an interior designer by trade. Just couldn't get back in there. Every door was closing, and I didn't understand back then because I was foggy. I didn't see things correctly, but it was a blessing. And then one day, my husband was listening to one of his co-workers present a show called Meaningful Monday, where they choose meaningful topics and talk about them. And she was talking about a Louise Hay book called The Power Within. And as I was listening to her, I said to myself, geez, I'd love to do what she does. And on the next time I heard it, because she does it every month, every first month of the every Monday of the month, first day of the month. Oh, a bit of a tongue tie. And then I went back on the Monday, and I heard her again. And then I got on and I was asking questions. It was an interactive webinar, and I met her, I'd say about 4 days later, and I started working for her. Now, tell me the universe doesn't conspire when you demand something, right? And that's exactly what happened. And that started my journey. And I've been there for the last 6 years working in personal development, and I love it. It is my passion. My biggest thrill is seeing someone so incredibly happy and healed. It gives me such joy in my heart, and obviously bring them to the light. And that's all that matters, really. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell.
Wow. Beautiful answer. And
Thank you.
yeah, I couldn't agree more with how you were saying the ripple effect of and how important it is, and just remaining in your center to be a light for yourself, and then it will hit other people and it will expand. And I think that's why we're seeing now huge changes in consciousness. I know from when I was a kid talking with my friends about things like the moon landing and 9/11, the conversation then was very different to how it is now. Even though I was so much younger, there was still so much judgment from other people. But
And
now,
from me.
yeah, but now I talk with people I've only just met, and it's like, oh yeah, there was definitely something going on, and just those small things, we see that ripple effect come expand out. And
Just the fact that people are willing to say there was something dodgy. Like,
yeah,
I know it's not right.
yeah, like I
I
have
think
those.
that is a massive step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and I think that's how we all start waking up. Like, I know that's how I started. I know, well, that's how you started your awakening, and that's how mum started. And everyone we've talked to on this show, there's an element of that within their story. And all it is, questions are a very powerful thing.
Yes.
And how you were saying before that, you would ask questions and there would be like judgment and like,
And it's
and
so funny to me that, well, no, actually, I won't say that. It's not funny to me. It's funny to me now because I used to be really worried about what other people thought. And that came from my mother. She was obsessed with how, like, what would the neighbors say? Like, that was almost like her catchphrase, right?
Yes.
And so growing up, I had that in my life. What do what will other people think if you do that? And so it was something that affected my decision making. But as I started to get older, I mean, I was the person who in our family who was the embarrassment because I was the one who really didn't give a shit sometimes about what other people
Yeah, I
thought.
remember Claude's.
Yeah. So my mum used to get very triggered by me because I was like, so what? Who cares what the neighbours think?
Yeah.
Then I became a mum and I had Juliet, and, there were things that she was doing that would be triggering me. But I was different to my mum because of the way she was. It taught me that, putting that onto her was a heavy burden because it was a heavy burden for me. And so, I would say to her, you realize that what you're doing, the way you're dressing or whatever it is, people are going to look at you. And she'd be like, yeah, I don't care. And so I'd be like, okay, cool. If you don't care, I don't care. And then we would go on our merry way as long as that was she was aware of it, because that was my, in my mind, that was my job, was to make her aware of it. I mean,
But you know where
what
that
is
comes
it?
from? There's
Yeah,
actually a whole thing where that comes from. So
yes,
um, obviously your mum get was triggered by you doing it because her inner child was triggered. So her
yes,
inner child was probably a very good girl,
yes,
right? And
yes. She used to pride herself
yes, yeah,
telling me the stories about how she was better than me
yeah, she
because
was a
she
good
was a
girl.
good girl.
Right? So we call it
Yeah,
good girl syndrome. I mean, it's well known. And then she would be triggered every time Claudia would go out wearing or doing whatever. It'd be like her inner child is saying, "No, stop, stop, don't
yes,
do that." Panic. Okay. So it, what I teach is that you've got to comfort your inner child at that time and tell your inner child it's okay. I'm an
yes,
adult. I've got it. I've covered it. Kind
yes.
of thing. And of
And
course,
I
it
kind
comes.
of learned that naturally because of the way she was with me. I was like, okay, I don't want that for my kids, so I'm going to do it differently. So I was a little bit like, well, I did it as a child and I grew up okay. I'm all right. Like, you
Yeah,
know, I'm not perfect, of course, but I survived, put it that way.
yeah.
So if she ever wanted to do something like that, it was like, you know, I'm sure she's going to be fine.
Yeah. And your
Yeah.
inner child probably wasn't as triggered because your inner child was wild, and it did what it
Yeah.
wanted to do.
And I'm just going to tell everyone, we went to school together, and that's
Yeah,
how Nancy knows me. We grew up together at high
yeah,
school, so
yeah.
she's aware of my past.
I'm aware of your inner child. Love
Yes.
your inner child, don't worry. So that's what I say, love your inner child and nurture it and tell it that it's okay because whenever we're triggered, and most of the time it's our children that will trigger us.
Yes.
It is your
And
inner
that's a
child.
blessing, isn't it, Nancy?
Absolutely,
That's a blessing
absolutely.
because when we're triggered, and this was the thing, my mum, she was triggered and she would hold a grudge
Hmm.
for sometimes years.
Yeah.
And but what I think a trigger is an opportunity for us to say, "Oh, that hurts. Why does that hurt?" And heal
Mhm.
that in ourselves and kind of get over it.
Yeah.
And not get over it, but get over it in a way that we can,
Like an obstacle, like
yeah,
move
like we're
past
Yeah,
it.
not
work
going
through
to be
it.
controlled by those things in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It gives
and
you an
so
opportunity to ask questions. Why
yeah,
am I triggered? What's
yeah,
going on here? And I usually say to my clients, just sit back, close your eyes, and what's the feeling? What's going on within me? And you will find the root cause of it, you
Yeah.
know. And that's a great opportunity. It is a blessing. You're right, Claudia. It is absolutely a blessing to get better and heal. The whole
yeah,
thing here is to heal. When you become healed, and you'll still be triggered at 70, 80, 90, things will come up and you'll still be triggered, but you won't react the same way. You
yes.
won't go
You're not
off the
passing it
handle.
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not passing it on to others. Like I was having this conversation with myself about the meaning of parenthood and being a mother and having children. And I was having this conversation, this was just the other day. And I was like, we have children and we do get triggered. Like it's like they are of us and they're walking around the earth creating on their own,
Yes.
and where we get an opportunity to see what they're doing and creating outside of ourselves. It's like having a walking mirror,
Yes.
and we can't control it. We are not here to control our children, right?
No.
So we see this part of ourselves walking around and we can't control it, and we see it growing and we see it moving and we see it going places, and and I think to myself, wow, that is so brave of a human being to have a child and go through that experience.
Hmm.
What's it all for? Like that's what I was asking myself. What's it all towards? What am I gaining? What am I creating by deciding to have a child? What did I do? What are the consequences of that?
Like it's so that topic is so interesting because
Yeah.
um Juliet, when she wasn't even, she was just a soul, decided to come to Earth, made the soul contract with you, Claudia, and you could have been in her previous or past life her daughter, and
Yes.
Juliet could have been the mum, and you still have unfinished business. So you
Yes.
decided to come here to Earth to work it out and allowing her to live her life, because really, I know you give your children love and you want the very best for them, but they've got their own path and their own
Yes.
journey. And we forget that as parents, that we think, oh no, we want what we didn't get, or we want to push on to them what we want. But it's actually so incorrect. We need to allow them to be their own person and grow and develop, make the mistakes and get back up and learn from them. And if their path goes down a different a route that you don't want, sometimes it takes a whole lot of faith, of course, and a whole lot of love for that child to allow them to go that way. Because in that lifetime, perhaps they're supposed to go that way and learn that lesson. And sometimes interrupting it is the worst thing that you can do, by the way, because
Yes.
it stops their progression of learning to learn what they're supposed to on this planet.
Yeah.
And I think as, especially in our culture, we've got Lebanese, Italian, Greek, whatever, we want to protect our children. We
Yes.
feel
The
this
little
need,
cultural thing. Yeah.
and it's so detrimental to their growth. You've got to have a moment where you've said, okay, I've raised you, I've given you the right values, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
ready to fly. And
Yeah. That trust component
yep, you send them
has
off
to
with
come
love.
into it.
Yeah.
So this conversation I was having with myself, I was like, there, exactly what you were just saying, that she is not of me. She's of me, but she's not me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I birthed her, we
Yep.
share DNA, but she is a soul in her own right. And knowing that as a mother and accepting that is like particularly for someone like me because I was adopted is really difficult. As like confronting
Mm-hmm.
that part of my life being adopted um, is the hugest fear. It's the most massive thing for me is to know that Juliet isn't mine.
Yeah.
Because for me, having a child was part of healing that knowledge that I was adopted and not having the DNA family that I came in through.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't that was severed when I was a child. So having a baby, having my own DNA as a child is huge for me.
Yeah.
And so realizing and having that conversation with myself is difficult. Like that's my higher self talking to me.
Yes. Yes.
That conversation I was having and that realization. I mean, I've always known she's not mine. I've always known that, but this
Mm.
is a deeper level I'm talking.
Yeah.
This is like you need to trust now. She's 20. You need to trust now
Yeah.
that you've done your job. You've raised her, you've loved her. You're there for her whenever she needs you because that's what I want. I never want to, I will always be on the periphery of her
Absolutely.
life
Absolutely.
because that's what I choose.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing all of that needs to be enough now.
Yeah, and you will get you do get moments where you want to step in and save your children, and
Yes.
you kind of like go like this, and then instantly I
Go,
think to
"Ah."
myself, let them come to you. I mean, I have a routine. If my kids come to me with something, or if I want to talk to them about something, I coach them. I get them to come up with the answers.
Yeah,
Because I think to myself, one day I'm not going to be here, and it could be any time. I don't know when my time is up. So I
that's good
would
advice.
I would never want to leave my child so reliant on a parent that they can't make their own decisions.
Yeah,
So I say to them, get used to the fact that I will not be here forever. And that's okay, because when my time comes and I go home, I'm meant to go home.
yeah,
So how will you deal with this if I'm not here? Or
yeah,
if you can't pick up the phone and say, hey, mum, or, whatever it may be. And this gets them thinking about, okay, so what are some of the things I can come up with? What are the options I could come up? And I always say to them, give me 5 options. And it really helps the process of being there, but still not having that, tightness onto your children. You're
Yeah.
still there as a parent, and you'll always be there as a parent. I mean, you're in the back, and that's fine, but you've got to know how that you can give them that love, and yes, I want to help you without giving too much. You've got to set boundaries, all it is just boundaries, and it's healthy for you, and it's super healthy for them.
Yes. Yes. And it changes, like this is the other thing, the upside in my mind is it changes the dynamic from being family that has to be together because
Hmm.
she needs to be looked after, she needs certain things, she needs a shelter,
Yep.
to now it being a choice
Hmm.
because she gets to grow up and go and live her own life, and when she comes home and when she's with me, that's her choice to be with me.
Yep.
And so it goes from she has to because she's got needs and a child to now she wants to,
Hmm.
because our children will grow up and leave home. And when they come home, it is their choice. So if they don't come home, that's their choice too.
Yep. And we've got to be okay with that.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
exactly.
it's not a reflection. A lot of people say, "Oh, I must have been a bad mother," or "What did I do wrong?" It's not a reflection of us,
Mm.
okay, in that sense. You do the best you can from where you're at with the awareness that you had at that time. Because there's a lot of people
Yes,
that really, batter themselves and say, "Oh, I could have done this," or "I should." I hate that word, should, because it doesn't give you choices. But if you say, "I could have done that," or "It could have worked out that way," it gives you a choice, right? So it's a great opportunity to let go and know that the universe and the divine, the higher consciousness, whether it be God or whether it be source energy or whatever you believe in, will just take care of the situation, and sometimes having that faith also gets you to breathe a bit. You know, we humans put a lot on ourselves and we beat ourselves up a lot.
yes. So that's the shadow side of taking responsibility, isn't it?
Mm.
That we're talking here. It's taking it to that point because I do that myself. Is that I feel that guilt about things that I chose for them when they were children, and if I knew then what I know now, I would do things very differently.
That's right.
So that shadow side of taking responsibility, there's taking responsibility, there's feeling so much guilt that you
Hmm.
took,
Hmm.
the responsibility that you did take, and then there's taking no responsibility and being the victim. It's like this pendulum of,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
And as a
So,
parent, that swings. And
yeah,
I can tell you the antidote to all of that and the foundation, of everything that you're talking about, of having the confidence, having self esteem, self worth, no fear to speak your truth, authenticity, all of those things, no people pleasing, getting rid of good girl syndrome. There's
yeah,
only one thing, and that only one thing will always be the foundation, and that is self love.
yeah, yeah.
And
What did
no,
I tell you the other
Which is
day?
why we changed the name the way we did.
Yeah,
wow,
Yeah.
I said those words to her.
self love. That's the only thing that will get rid of it. And when you build your self love, you will be able to ditch the people pleasing. You'll be able to not care about what anyone else thinks. You'll be so authentic and live your truth and live your purpose that you
Yeah.
will be a different person. You'll actually attract to you all the wonderful things, abundance, happiness, great relationships, all these sort of things into your life.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is, again, this point, the self love point, and doing things for yourself out of self love. When I was a child, I was taught that those things were selfish,
Hmm.
and that giving of yourself and being selfless, being there for your children and giving everything to them, like that's the Italian way, right? That's the
Hmm.
culture
Hmm.
of my family growing up was you are there for everyone and you give little to yourself. You expect little in return.
Yeah.
So that's the shadow side of what we're talking about is this lack and this, if you want abundance, if you want all of this stuff for yourself, you're greedy, you're not putting your family first, all of that kind of talk that goes on
Yeah,
in your head.
that's beliefs.
Yes,
Old
exactly.
limiting beliefs. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, I've had a journey of unraveling all of that because, like and like we were talking about before, if I ever stepped out of what other people thought of me, like, and I didn't care about that, I was a bad person because I was a reflection of the family.
Yeah.
So if and really what I was doing as a child was I was trying to grow into a person that I respected.
Yeah.
And I was testing the limits of what was important to me and how I felt about showing up in the world the way I was choosing to show up in the world and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then being told that I'm a reflection of the family, I can't do that. I have to follow the family's ethos and
Yes.
their values,
Yes.
was telling me that even the small amount of exploring that I wanted to do was shameful,
Yeah.
and I think I got to a point when I found out I was adopted at 26 where I went, okay, your ethos is BS
Yes.
because you didn't tell me that you've been lying to me this whole time. So I went through this
That
like,
is a huge lie, and
yeah,
Mm.
what self-love is, and what I've come to learn at what self-love is the complete opposite of that.
yeah,
Because when you give yourself permission to want everything that you want, and maybe you don't get everything you want, but to give yourself permission just to feel want for everything that comes to you, and maybe from there you can take steps to get those things, or like how you were saying before, Nancy, demanding it and then the universe coming and doing the rest for you.
Yeah.
you know that then provides abundance for family, because
yes,
when you're happy, people around you are happy. And when you're, say, in a parent position, when
Are you
you're
coaching me, Juliet?
no,
Oh,
no.
she's so wise,
No, I know.
Claudia.
I know. I was
I
just
love
joking.
it. I love it. I think it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I
This
know she's very
generation,
wise.
this
She's
generation is what I like. This is what I like to see. And what a positive role model you really are, Juliet.
I know this is the next generation.
Because
Like it's amazing.
you're spot on. Fill from your cup first,
Yeah,
and then you can pour onto others.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah,
exactly what you're saying.
yeah. And there's no shame in that. Like there's
No.
no the filling my cup looks what it looks like for me. It's a fingerprint. It
Yeah.
Yeah.
it looks different for other people
Yeah.
how they fill their cup, but for me, you know, to feel because I felt shame for so long, filling my cup the way I wanted to. Like I was like, oh no, I can't do that because that's going to affect them in this way. I can't do it because it's going to affect them in this way. Like, and so I would talk myself out of it
Mm.
so that I could be the good mother. I could be a provider. I could be, I could be the rock for the family. I could be the person that they can come to and rely on, and all of that stuff. But eventually, if you do that for long enough, which is what I've found in my life, you've got nothing left.
Yeah.
And you're resentful.
Yeah, and then the people around you start to see your unhappiness, and then that makes them unhappy. And that's something that's been one of the hardest lessons for me, is to choose happiness in every moment,
Yeah.
even if it means going against what you think is right for your family.
Yeah. It's because you're conditioned, and we
Yeah,
all are. You're no different from so many others, and especially mums that have
yes,
been told all their life, you must be the rock, the foundation, and their needs are before yours. And I find that I'm getting more and more women in their 60s coming to me with depression because the family unit has everyone's left home, it's just them and the hubby, and they've got nothing in their life because for so many years they've been the caretaker, primary caretaker, and they've got nothing, and then they say, I've wasted my time. I haven't done anything with my life. What job do I have? I can't do anything. I'm useless,
Yeah, right.
because their cup was not filled during those times, you know.
Yeah.
Their needs weren't met. So when I say fill from your cup, it might mean that I'm not going to do the washing today. I'm actually going to take the day out and go out for the day. You know, the washing will always be there, that there will be plenty of food, no one goes hungry, and things will always be done on another day. But today I'm going to honor myself. I use those words quite often when people say, oh, self-love is, it's not vanity, it's
No.
honoring yourself to do what makes your heart sing. Because when you fill up that cup, what comes out of it? Nothing but, oh, I want to serve, I want to help, I want to love, I want to give, with love and joy, not with I'm serving because I have to.
Yes, so true.
Exactly.
So true.
Yeah. So I do say that to a lot of women, you know, and men too. There are a lot of men that are caregivers, full-time caregivers, you know.
Yeah.
Same situation. Same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're not going to take responsibility for that in your life and give yourself that self-love and fill your cup up, then the people around you are going to see that, and they're going to not pay the price, but the people that love you are going to start to feel depleted too.
Yeah.
And we teach these little young ones. They watch us when we think, oh, they're not watching it. They watch you all the time. So if you're not filling up your cup and your needs, they're going to do the same thing. So actually teaching generations to come how to behave, where we should be actually teaching them that self-love is mandatory. They don't teach it at schools, you know, they don't teach leadership at
Yes, so
schools. They
true.
don't teach anything to make the human being better, to reach their
Yes.
full potential. So when they go out in the universe, they're not criminals and they're not murderers, etc., like I was saying before. Broken people, we're teaching them to become broken and dependent on pharmaceutical,
Yes.
dependent on psychiatrists and counselors, and you know,
Outside themselves, anything
yes,
outside themselves.
thank you.
Yes.
It's all internal. Everything that you need, the body has the power to heal itself.
Yeah.
We work,
That's the spiritual journey in all of this. I see that.
yeah,
And it was that way for me that led me to spirituality was everything that you're saying now is about figuring out yourself, knowing yourself first, and the things, because there's layers and layers and layers that come to you through childhood and through teenage years and everything from your parents and from the outside
mm,
world. And what my journey has been is stripping all of that back and finding out who I am and what I want and what makes me happy in that special way, in that fingerprint way,
mm,
so that I can fill my cup, so that I can give genuinely, not out of duty, not out of, I have to do this because it's my family, which is what I was doing.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I was doing because that's what I was taught to do. And I want to give to my family. I want to show up for them. I love my children. I want to be in their life as the best version of myself that I can be. But I
yeah.
didn't know how to do that. I didn't even know I wasn't doing it.
That's right. And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not taught, and that's why, again, just having that awareness, so we're not beating ourselves up. We
Yes.
just have that awareness that that's what it was back then, and now I know better. I can go forward and do what I need to do without the guilt. And the guilt thing also is the lack of self-love, and it's also passed on. You know,
Yeah.
Italian, Lebanese, same sort of thing. It's just passed on. Dropping the guilt. Just, it's like I keep saying to them, you're wearing this heavy cloak. You've got to drop it
Yeah.
just to feel the lightness, you know. That's not you. And like you said, going deep and peeling those onion layers away
Yeah.
and really finding out, who is Claudia? Who am I? And most people say, I'm a mum or I'm this. No, no, who are you?
Yes.
What is the
Yes.
root deep in your heart, in your soul, right in the pit of your belly? What and who are you? You know, what gift do you have for this world?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
The
I'm
true.
still
journey.
discovering it.
That's
Juliet asked me, Juliet asked me, and I was like, I'm still discovering it. There's
well,
not one thing. Like, I don't feel like there's one thing. I
But
feel like there's
we're all
many things.
we're all discovering it, and that's
Yeah.
totally okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
it's a
this
journey.
show that we do is part of it for me.
100%.
This is part of it. Like, because brings me so much joy. Talking to people like you, Nancy, and bringing out these conversations into the community is part of it for me. Using myself as an example, like talking about my life and showing, like, being vulnerable and saying the mistakes that I've made. And it helps me to um, to uncover and to decompress and to know that if there's somebody out there relating to what I'm saying and that it's helping them, then great. The judgment doesn't worry me. Like, if there's people who want to judge me, I've been judged
Yeah.
by the one person in your life that shouldn't judge you. I got judged, so judge away.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I got broad shoulders from that,
Yeah.
and that's fine. So, now that I've invited it in, it's going to come. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
the point
Yes.
is that me judging me is my struggle.
Yeah.
That's where I'm.
I think that's everyone's struggle.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
I face that a lot as well, and
yeah,
that's the battle of the ego, really,
yes.
and
The battle of the ego.
discovering what is you and what is your ego. You know how you were saying before, who am I? Am I?
Yeah,
I'm a mum, or I'm a this. It's like, no, that's not it. And you know, we are beings that defy words, and so when you try and put something as physical as words
Hmm.
onto
so
ourselves,
true. It's
it's
difficult.
really hard to. It takes a long time to come across the words that describe ourselves, and we have to go through a lot of trial and error as well. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm,
something I'm learning is you have to go through a lot of mistakes and a lot of crying and a lot of, you
Hmm.
know, a lot of hardship, which is something that I didn't really expect to be so much of until recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, it's not a linear thing, and you can't just,
And it won't be. And you
yeah,
will fluctuate throughout your whole life with
yeah,
those feelings. But as I said before, and I mean, and I'm going to say it again, just love yourself.
yeah,
That's the only thing. And I teach little ones that too, like my nieces, love yourself for
yeah,
all your imperfections, for everything as you are right now. Because then when you do get to where you are, and I find this a lot with women that, struggle to lose weight and then they lose weight and they're still nitpicking because they didn't love themselves when they were at their heaviest. So how are you
yeah. And
going
they
to love
thought
yourself?
that yes, because I've been that person. My mum had me at Jenny Craig when I was 17. So, I've been on that weight loss journey, and it wasn't until I stopped, I was like, I need to stop everything and just be. And then the weight started to come off. It
Yeah,
was like, and I naturally, like, leveled out.
yeah,
And I was like, wow, when I started to realize that it's not food, it's not exercise, it's not anything outside of myself, it's me accepting me
yeah,
for who I am. And when I stopped everything and I just accepted who I was with gusto, it was like, I don't give a shit what other people think. Like, I
yeah,
had to get to that point,
yeah,
and then it all leveled out, and it's fine, like, and because I've accepted myself for who I am now.
yeah,
Maybe not, maybe to the surface level, maybe not all the way down. I've still got, work to do or places to go with that.
yeah,
But to the point where now I'm not on fad diets anymore. I'm not, counting every calorie and,
yeah,
doing the exercises that wrecked my knees.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just, being myself.
Yeah, I think loving yourself for who you are is huge for
Yeah.
even, let's go to the other side of the spectrum, the younger people, our next generation, with Instagram and Facebook and
Yes. Oh my
Snapchat
gosh.
and all that, this lookbook of fakeness, filters and
Yeah.
whatnot. We've got kids as young as, 8 and 9 wanting nose jobs. I mean, this is ridiculous. What are we teaching our people? What are we teaching them? To look outside, to fix yourself, and then you'll love yourself.
Yes.
Whereas we need to go really deep inside and say, I am beautiful as I am. And
That's a never-ending journey, isn't it? That
that's
one.
a never-ending
Fix my
journey.
nose and I'll feel right. Lose the weight and I'll feel okay. Fix my eyes and I'll feel okay.
Yeah,
That's part of the reason why I allowed myself to go grey because
yeah, I love that.
yeah, because I was chasing my tail with it. I was constantly dying because I've got dark hair and grey streaks which are light.
Yeah,
So do I go blonde? And
yeah.
then, but if I go blonde, I'm half dark, so I've got to keep doing
Hmm.
the blonde.
Hmm.
Do I go dark? If I go dark, I've got the greys, so I have to keep doing the greys. So it was this never-ending ferret,
Yeah,
wheel
yes.
of dyeing my hair, and I got sick of it. And somebody said to me, Claude, why don't you just stop
Hmm.
doing it? Just go grey. And I was like, what are you speaking to
Yeah,
me? The
yeah.
devil is speaking to me.
Foreign tongue.
Exactly. And I was like, no, I could never do that. I could never be grey. Like, I'm going to look older than I am. And then I just went, you know what? I'm just doing it.
You look beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because the external always translates
Yeah.
to the internal, and so whenever I have things that I want to change externally, I look at, well, what is the reason for this internally, and is it something that is worth the change externally, or is it me
Yes. Is it worth
looking,
the effort?
yeah, or am I just
Yes.
looking for something?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's
So wise, Juliet. So true.
Yes, he's very wise.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
so true.
and I think there's you can pick and choose your battles. You
Yeah.
can if losing weight also means you're doing it for health reasons or for
Hmm.
whatever, then that's excellent and that's
Hmm.
something to pride yourself on. But if it's
Everybody's
something,
journey looks
yeah,
different.
but if it's something you're doing because you're hyper focused on words like, I don't even want to speak the words, but the negative connotations
Yes.
opposite of losing weight. If you're
Yeah.
focusing on the negative and you think, oh, if I lose weight, it's going to give me
Give me
everything I
something. Yeah.
want, then you're going to go down that path, and then it's going to be like, oh, I've
Mm.
lost weight, still feel shit, so
Hmm.
don't know what's going on there. And we've all been there. I've been there.
Yes.
Everyone, I feel like most people have been there in some aspect of that. It might not be losing weight, it might be something else, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's um and I think another thing that adds some hardness or some character building is, at least in my experience, when you do things for the internal reason, it's instead of the external reason, it takes longer to get there because
But it's
you're
real.
working through both the
Yeah.
external and the internal, and
Yeah.
sometimes it juggles and sometimes it changes. um, and you're dealing with a lot of habits that you're breaking, because you're permanently changing. When you deal with the internal, it's probably not going to go back. You're
That's right.
dealing with the source of the problem, and so it takes a lot longer. And us humans, we don't want longer. We
Yeah.
want
We
it
want it
quick,
now.
convenient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting journey of morphing yourself into being who you want to be, because when you want to lose weight for the right reasons, that's you becoming yourself. How we were talking, like, oh,
Yeah.
who are we?
Hmm.
These thoughts of oh, I want to lose weight because I know that's going to make me feel better. I know I'm going to feel more confident because I will be eating right for my body. I'll be moving right for my body. When you're doing it for those reasons instead, that's your higher self
Yeah.
you know, that's you
That's
telling
right.
yourself that. And so that's
And that
you.
has longevity, like that
Yeah.
sticks too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're just doing a fad diet to lose weight, like you're going to spend money on it, you're going to, waste a lot of time on it. You're going to be going down that road of gimme, 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 gimme,
Yeah.
and I have to have it, I have
And
to
it's
have it.
just not weight loss.
It's not the
I'm
same.
using one example. It's with
Yeah.
everything, you know.
Absolutely. And I think, like what you said before, Juliet, when you are doing it internally first and you're healing yourself inside, it reflects on the outside.
Yeah.
Most women find that when they start to work on themselves internally, their weight starts to drop like this.
Yeah.
Yes. That was my
And
experience.
yep, and also we've noticed that when people carry a lot of weight just on their tummy, they're protecting their solar plexus, which is fear.
Yeah.
Most women carry weight here from fear, could be fear of anything really, or if they've gone through trauma,
Yeah.
or not wanting to let go of that is like protection,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know. So again, working on the self internally produces the results on the outside, and that's 100%. I agree
Yeah.
with you there.
Yeah.
We're such complex beings, aren't we?
We
Yeah, we
certainly
really
are. And we've gone over time like 10 minutes.
I'm so
Have we
sorry.
No, it's fine. When that happens, we find that we're like really in the nitty gritty of it and we
Yeah,
lose track of
it's been
time.
amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I
Yeah.
really
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for coming on, Nancy. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
My
And
pleasure.
yeah, and I always ask now to our first people, the people who this is their first time, will you come back again?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'd be honored. Thank you so
Awesome.
much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yay.
great.
Oh.
All right, everyone.
Thank you for watching,
Yeah,
and
thanks
we'll
for tuning
see
in.
you with our ancient mysteries.
Yeah, that's our next one coming up.
Yes.
Mwah.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.